some of the air.
Hi, good evening. We'll start less than a minute.
Oh, that's a Mickey.
Let me get so I can read. The light's too much. It's killing me. There you go.
Oh, you're still in that eye.
You good, Tony?
Okay, good evening. It's 7 o'clock here in the Northeast of the United States, and this is Kunchab Tarduling, aka the Tibet Center, a Buddhist meditation and study center located in New York City and northern New Jersey. And this is our twice weekly presentation of the Buddha Dharma, specifically Stages on the Path to Enlightenment, written by Tsong Khapa, the Lam Rim, they call it. If there's any problem with the picture or the sound, please text me or Mr. Smith immediately. All the prayers we say are on the Tibet Center website in the FAQ section. Scroll down to prayers. If there's anyone for whom you wish us to pray for who has passed away recently, place their names in the chat box or text or whatever you have to do. But don't wait till the end because there is a time delay, about half a minute, from spoken word to transmission, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, we'll start. Prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teaching flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living here, together with their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness, may they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. The Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi, which examines the dharmas, called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, how should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge? And Avalokiteshvara answered, Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas and their natural emptiness. Form is empty. Emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus, all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas, from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future, by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering, should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed, Tayato Om Gate Gate Para Gate Para Sam Gate Bodhisoha. O Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound, transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, humans, Asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. Excuse me. Now, refuge and bodhisattva vow, which we say 3 times, as everyone knows. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So good evening. We'll carry on where we left off last night as promised. We'll do 3 elements. First of all, we'll continue our, riff or solo or whatever on Tsong Khapa's praise for dependent relativity, the prayer that His Holiness advised us all to recite as a cause for the quick return of Rato Chungla Rinpoche, in addition to the other prayers you may want to say. And then we'll talk about debate somewhat with His Holiness Dalai Lama and Venerable Children, and then we'll go to the Lamrim and Geshe Soma's commentary on. We'll say goodbye to the 13th chapter tonight, and then we'll move on. So, again, the Lamrim itself, we're not covering point by minute point because it's difficult. It would be boring for some people, and I don't understand it totally. So, if I have a good commentary, I know how to read. That's it. What we're talking about now is the nature of the mind. This is from page 41 of this book, Praise for Dependent Relativity. It's a commentary on the 4 lines. What on conditions does rely is empty of inherent being, and what is more important than that, something like that. Let's say, it's the why we praise. The final 2 lines say, what way of fine instruction more astounding than this utterance? That's one translation. Whereas the key 4 lines where this is the reason why we're praising Buddha, because he taught dependent arising. So it's page 41 now. We're going to talk about the nature of mind, Venerable Gyatso and Venerable Woodhouse. This is very interesting. It applies to you right now, walking around with the mind you have, etc. So this is the Buddhist view of what the mind is. Last night, I think someone asked, what is mind? And we said, clear and knowing. This is an expansion on that now. According to Buddhist philosophy, the defining characteristics of mind are that it is clear and knowing. What does that mean? Clear and knowing. It is clear with respect to what appears to it, and it acts to be aware of it, to experience its objects. It's not just a mirror that doesn't think, it's both. So, to be sure, Buddhist thinkers see physical brain activity as a necessary support for consciousness in the human realm. Okay? But if someone asks exactly what transforms into the present moment of an individual's mind, in other words, what is it that in transforming becomes this present moment of mind? If you watch, your mind changes moment by moment, we answer that it is only the previous moment of that mind. Well, Bulla, Rod. Thanks. Nice to see you. Good evening, Steve. Good evening, Leslie. Nice to see you. Hope you're nice and warm. So the only thing that causes the mind is the previous moment of the mind. That's a big point. You can prove a lot of things knowing that. The quality of knowing objects, being aware of them, is exclusive to consciousness. So we would say of a computer, no matter how complex, that it can play chess, but it does not know how to play chess. It's just calculating. Okay, whatever. It's matching. If Eugene is out there, Eugene will comment on this. We're sure. Excuse me. I'm allergic to the cat a little bit. In the general Buddhist view, then, mind is a non-material phenomena. Non-material phenomena, like matter, it is ever adapting and ever evolving, just like matter does, but it is not made of atoms and does not arise primarily out of their interactions. Why are they repeating this? Because we have a tendency to apply physical characteristics to a non-physical thing, our mind. And that's the way we think, and that's how we're comfortable. But now they're saying, yes, look carefully. There are no limits on the mind. There are limits in the physical world. And that's one big thing you should understand. The Venerables continue on page 41. The main cause of any moment of mind is only a previous moment of that mind. Reinforcement. Thus, each individual's mind exists before and beyond the boundaries of this life. Before and beyond the boundaries of this life. Your mind, mine, everyone's, the cat's, existed before this current life that we're all in and will exist afterwards. Comforting in one way. Let him meow. Nobody hears. No one cares. You're going to stop him. Indeed, mind is beginningless and endless. Okay? Beginningless and endless. Change is a constant aspect of consciousness as it is of the universe at large. Yes, but it's always around and it always will be around. Comforting. Maybe. Depends on what you do with it. Sometimes a stream of consciousness deals with manifest, obvious objects, as when the ordinary sense consciousness take on the aspect of colors, shapes, smells, and taste. Oh, there's a nice red chair. In your mind, you have a picture of it. It's taking on the aspect of it. Oh, I smell cinnamon rolls. You must be in the mall. Things like that. That's what they're talking about. Sometimes it takes a much subtler form, as during the death process, when the mind starts to disintegrate to its most subtle state. We can go on about that for weeks, but I can't, but a good yogi can. Sometimes the afflictions flare up. Oh, yes. At other times, they are not manifest and exist only as potentials, unless you're realized. They exist as potentials. The influence of ignorance is always present to some degree in an ordinary person's consciousness. That's very important now. The influence of ignorance is always present to some degree in an ordinary person's consciousness, coloring every cognition a person has. So we are subtly, even though we're not aware of it, influenced by ignorance. What ignorance? The basic ignorance of misreading reality, among others. So associated with every consciousness and acting as its support, this is very important, is a very subtle kind of form or physical energy, the wind, something like that. Like the mind it ever accompanies, it's always together. Like horse and rider, whatever you want to say, wisdom and consciousness are always together. Symbiotic relationship, if you want to use a hot word, an old-fashioned. Anyway, like the mind, this physical energy that's always attached to it ever accompanies, always accompanying the mind, it cannot be said to have any beginning and will not end. So those two are always present. Subtle. It gets gross and gross, and as we, live in this life, etc., but it's always there. And when a person dies, the subtle wind and the subtle consciousness travel together to the new being's body or whatever, and then the wind becomes the basis for the body's growth, etc., and the mind becomes the basis. The consciousness becomes the basis of the mind. That's roughly it, but that's a big point. You could imagine them as horse and rider. The rider can't run fast like a horse, but knows where to go. The horse can run fast, but doesn't know where to go. Always together. Nor can we who possess one particular stream of consciousness be said in that sense to have any beginning. We can say that our consciousness has no beginning. A person goes from life to life, adopting or discarding different outward forms and personalities like roles in a stage show. So I hope you get the starring role in your next life. That's it. But we direct that, by your behavior and by the karma you create in this life. That's why we come here. But there's a chance for improvement, chance for total evolvement to Buddhahood. So the next paragraph, science's understanding of life's physical process has led to remedies to cure or ameliorate many severe diseases. Good. Buddhism's doctrine of the continuity of mind over lifetimes, together with the theory of karma, has furnished an explanation of why misfortunes such as acute diseases fall on whom they do. There are dharma practices that purify our negative inner karmic potentials before they ripen as such misfortunes. But the main aim is to bring an end to the process of uncontrolled rebirth and thereby abandon sufferings completely. That's the purpose of watching our minds, creating the right karma, etc. The means to take control of the situation lies in our capacity for mental transformation and evolution. Good news in the middle of winter here. Good news. The rapid technological advances of the last couple of centuries have opened our eyes to the sheer transformability of matter. The mind's parallel capacity for radical development should not be overlooked. It's been around. Methods are there. It's up to us. Right? The mind is an eminently impressionable, responsible, and trainable entity. It's impressionable, it's responsible, and trainable entity. Some characteristics. As we know, once we are really familiar with something, be it a particular set of memorized verses, a mood, or a skill, the mind can operate with almost without any effort at all. Yes, a musician first learns, then all of a sudden you think of the melody, playing it, you're playing with feeling. Yeah, that's the mind. What is hard at the beginning can become spontaneous. Another important factor. What is hard at the beginning can become spontaneous. Shantideva said there's nothing that can't be learned without the familiarity. The difficult can be made easy by familiarity, repetition, looking into it. So the mind has, the Venerables continue on page 42, that's where we are now, in case you're worried. The mind has an unlimited capacity to transform, unlimited. That's hard for us to understand because as we see the physical world, there's limits. It's an underlying thought, you can only run so fast as this, not the mind. Those metrics do not apply to the mind. Don't get depressed over things like you have total freedom if you look into the mind and develop. Defilements and heavy, burdensome emotions like jealousy, self-pity, a big one these days, and anger can be eliminated. And wonder-working qualities like compassion can, with strong application, be enhanced to an infinite degree, keyword, infinite degree, over a series of lifetimes if necessary. Yes, probably is necessary for some of us. There are physical limitations on how high even the most athletic of us can jump or how fast we can run. But the mind is not a physical phenomena. It is not bound by those limitations. However deep the karmic imprints from our past negative involvements, however ingrained the mental afflictions of lifetimes in samsara, and however constrained our sense faculties in the present life, none of these limitations are intrinsic to the mind. They're not intrinsic to the mind. Nothing's intrinsic, actually, but changeable, developable. That's a good word. It's probably a better word than that. Venerable Karuna's in the house. So Buddha stressed again and again the potential purity of the mind, a purity that is finally and fully revealed in Buddhahood. All Dharma practices are, in a sense, simply a way to accumulate the causes and conditions necessary to make manifest that sublime potential. Our Buddha nature, you could call it. We all have it. So it's time to develop. And we have all the tools, the good centers, the kind lamas. They're here, and they're even on YouTube, whatever. They're on the electronic media, however you get. The Venerables continue. One of the major classifications of mind in the Buddhist system is the division into valid and invalid awarenesses. We have been talking about that. Valid and invalid awarenesses, they're saying now. Those that correctly apprehend a particular aspect of reality and induce certainty with respect to it, and those that do not. What do we have mostly of? Don't answer. A careful study of these two types of mind is most worthwhile. There are two distinct kinds of valid minds: direct valid minds and inferential valid minds. Direct valid minds and inferential valid minds. This is the way they're mapping the mind in this context. Okay. Some of the key objects of contemplation and meditation on the path to liberation, such as emptiness and impermanence, are quite subtle affairs. So an ordinary being cannot at first expect to observe them by direct perception, though that is his or her eventual aim. Yes, to directly see emptiness, directly understand impermanence at the most subtle level, the moment by moment. So in the beginning, we have to depend on inference. Suppose we are standing outside a house and see smoke rising from the chimney. Here we go with smoke and fire. All right. I made a wise remark one time. Well, it could be dry ice, but nobody thought that was funny, so I don't use it much, but I just did. Now, sometimes we're standing outside. We see smoke coming from the chimney. Seeing smoke, we infer that there's a fire inside the house. Okay, very nice. We do not see the fire directly, but we have accurate knowledge of it nonetheless. The first kind of wisdom we cultivate to guide us on the path to liberation will be of this type, the type that depends on reasons. So get used to that. That was a stupid political message. I thought someone was having trouble with the transmission. They're not. So the first kind of wisdom we cultivate to guide us on the path to liberation will be of this type, the type that depends on reasons. Your reading, your thinking, the process, but using words, using concepts. It's conceptual. Nothing wrong with that. It's necessary. This is just one way that Buddhism uses the study of the mind as a basis for the spiritual path. Buddhist mind science also distinguishes thoroughly between the bare perception of the sense consciousness and the discursive activity of conceptual consciousness. The words bare perception of the sense consciousness, right? And discursive activity of conceptual consciousness. It's discursive, this to this to this. Okay? And then there are the inspiring stages of single-pointed concentration and meditation that a practitioner ascends through on more exalted levels of the training, the one-pointed samadhis, etc. Just so you can train your mind to hold it on a topic. And not only when you achieve this one-pointed mind, there's a blissful feeling in the body. You don't get tired and you want to study more. You could, as soon as you achieve calm abiding, start to engage in discursive thinking again and without losing that one-pointedness. Sounds counterintuitive, but that's what the books say. So, there are many more examples that illustrate the exactness, thoroughness, and helpfulness of Buddhist treatises on psychology and epistemology. Suffice it to say that just as Western science has evolved its own methodologies of investigating the external world, so too has Buddhism developed techniques of analysis and reasoning to comprehend the laws by which mind operates. So Buddhism went internal, providing the basis for our evolution to the higher state of happiness. That's comforting. Surely positive and peaceful transformation will come about through these inner and outer sciences working in combination. That's pretty deep. So we'll leave it up there tonight. So you have time, you want to read this book, it's available. I think it's even an ebook. I hope it didn't change its title, Praise for Dependent Relativity. Very nice. I think we have a copy upstairs. I don't want to put it on Chola's face. We have a picture of Chola here.
Oh,
You didn't see it?
yeah. Oh, look at
Taking the steam bath in Taiwan. I think it's a Nikki picture. Yes. So now, back again to where we left off last night. Approaching the Buddhist path, the modern Lamrim, which is a combination of His Holiness Dalai Lama and many other people he brought together. Every time there was a question, he had a whole committee of high lamas. Ishe Damdal was one of them. His brother was there. And they would go on to these different topics, debate them, and then His Holiness would say, okay, to conclude all of this, it would be translated so children could write it up. And that's how they proceeded. Very thorough. It's not just His Holiness, although he probably could have on his own. Oh, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? This meant over many years. I think 10 years to write this series. So what a gem, in my opinion. So memorization and debate we're going to talk about now. We said last night we would talk about that. So you hear about the tales of debating, and they debate all night long and this and that, and they have memorized texts, and etc. This is the activity of the monastics, mostly in India. I think here also. Now, there's some very good Sravasti Abbey and places like that, with the Noble Wing and it all over the place. It's starting here too. So, memorization and debate. This is from page 208 of this book, Approaching the Buddhist Path, the first volume of the soon-to-be 10-volume Modern Lamrim. 9 are out. The 10th is next fall. It'll be on Tantra. In traditional Tibetan monastic universities, or the monasteries as we call them, the daily schedule includes specified times for group chanting, teachings, memorization, and debate. So what are those monks doing? That's what they're doing. The nuns are doing the same thing. I write to, I text back and forth with, we call a French Marianne, Tenzin Kunki. She used to be a student here and in France, and now she's a nun down south at Jiangchib Ling, something like that. Was it Jiangchib Ling? Yeah. Good student, fluent in Tibetan, writes poems in Tibetan. Good for her. That's what they do. Chantings, teaching, memorization, and debate. Private study and silent meditation are done at the monastic's own convenience. You would meet in the Lama's room, 2 or 3 people to go over a certain topic, but the general program in the monastery are those 4 things. Since the time of the Buddha, memorization has been a principal way of perceiving and conveying the teachings from spiritual mentor to disciple. Memorization has many benefits. Students already have some familiarity with the text contents when they are receiving teachings on it. They are made to memorize text first. Then later on, they go to class in them. But then it's in their mind. The teacher starts talking about a topic. It's there, and they can relate to it in a more familiar manner. It's not something all of us have all this at once. I'm like, no, they've memorized it. That's what the younger monks do. He'll explain. After studying a text, they will be able to easily recall its key points. By having quick access to quotations, students can draw attention to those passages when they debate and contemplate. External and internal debate. When teaching, they are able to cite passages related to a specific topic from diverse texts, enhancing the breadth and depth of their explanation. In difficult situations, they can easily remember Dharma advice. Extreme situations, fear, running away from attack as they had to do. Their minds were full of these texts. Many Tibetan monastics who were imprisoned by the communist Chinese after 1959 silently recited texts in their prison cells. They couldn't have books or anything, but it was in their mind. It was downloaded. Not only did they spend their time familiarizing themselves with the Buddha's thought, but they could also easily recall advice on how to practice during difficult times, which are embedded in these texts. Someone who holds a wealth of text in their memory is like a cook who has all the ingredients for a delicious meal at her fingertips. Oh boy, I'll have the sword for it. Never mind. Memorization is also a way of training the mind. I would think so. Yeah. Students must learn to concentrate on the material they are memorizing and recall it instantly. In a Tibetan monastery, this requires special focus, since one is surrounded by many other monastics loudly reciting the passages they are memorizing. Yeah, it's not a peaceful place like a spa where it's so quiet and just drift off into your own private Idaho or whatever. Come on. No. And they rule, they have the strength of mind and the control of their senses to rule out these distractions and study. I've seen movies of this and videos of it. Little monks, 7, 8 years old, at the top of their lungs, screaming this stuff out. Supposedly, I heard from one source, I don't know how accurate this is, but it's easier to memorize when you recite out loud. I didn't know that. So that's what they do. They build up the ability not to be distracted by external sounds, which is a great aid when they meditate, and a great aid when you live in an urban environment. That's for sure. Debate is an animated process that helps students learn the material, think about it, and remember what they have learned. Hearing, thinking, meditating. The structures of a debate is formalized, and both participants, the seated respondent and the standing questioner, there's a strict format that they follow, must be familiar with the syllogistic structure. So they're going in prepared of the ground rules, we could put it that way. It's not just free-flying, blah, blah. This format teaches people how to think clearly. The speaker cannot ramble and hope the debate partner understands what he is trying to say, like the questioners in class, the 2-hour question, Both parties must be concise and to the point. So you could tell, my mind's sharp and everything. If you ramble on it, but just asking a question so that the person says, and what was the question? That happens. The mind's not trained. So you have to train it to help be of use to everyone else. Okay? A debate begins with the questioner asking the respondent a question. Once the questioner has an idea of the view the responder holds, the thesis, he will ask him what reasons he has to support that. Oh, well, why do you say that? I guess. If he sees a flaw in the responder's logic, he will try to refute it either by getting the responder to contradict himself or by establishing the correct view. In his supplement to the Middle Way, the Madhyamaka Avatara, Chandrakirti states, one of the texts, by the way, that they memorized. Yeah. The other one's ornament of clear realization of Abhisamayalam or something. I don't know. I don't know the text. I'm an idiot. But there are people working on this now. And in Nikki's monastery, in the Rato monastery. Oh, well. If he sees a flaw, he will try to refute it. In his supplement to the Middle Way, Madhyamaka Avatara, Chandrakirti states that the purpose of these philosophical debates is not to generate hostility toward the other person and his view, or to arrogantly establish our own view in order to gain a good reputation. And that seems to be carrying the day these days. I mean, at least what I observe in class, people are always trying to push I guess a heavy debate or even a moderate debate, if one wants to look in and start laughing at the carryings on certain Dharma discussions. And so we have to sharpen up our thinking. So the purpose of all this, the key sentence here, is to eradicate the ignorance that obscures both parties from gaining Dharma realizations and to establish both self and others on the path to awakening. Oh, yeah, that's it. It's not competitive. How weak is that? How creepy is that? Is that? What do? Get a prize, a trophy? Yeah, we should have a debate trophy. You can put it on your mantle. Come on. Again, the world has crept into even pure things like this. Throw it out. Bearing this in mind helps debaters maintain a good motivation and also counteracts the supposition that debate is simply intellectual competition. It is not. You look at it that way and make it that way, you took a wrong turn. Wake up, come back, double back. Well, During the Buddha's time, two monks, and Banda and Abhijika, attorneys at law, these two monks, this is from the Pali Canon, I assume. Um, these two monks were debating the teachings in order to determine who could speak better and have the final word. What? When news of their activities reached the Buddha, he called for them, and the following dialogue ensued. This is not from the Samyutta Nikaya, 16.6, section 16.6. You can get this in Bhikkhu Bodhi's translations of the different Pali parts of the Pali Canon. The Pali Canon is what they call the fundamental vehicles. Tipton Chodron was given the assignment by His Holiness to read up the Pali Canons, describe it. And she said it was refreshing because you got to see Buddha as a real person, dialoguing with people. It was very, very interesting, and it really increased her faith. So here's the dialogue. They were called to see the Buddha. It's like in the army, we get down to this, the orderly room. The first sergeant wants to see you. I remember some encounters with that. And they don't talk like the Buddha. The F-bomb is ever present. So the Buddha said, "Is it true, bhikkhus, that you have become competing with each other in regard to your learning, so as to who can speak more, who can speak better, who can speak longer? Is that what you've been doing, Bunky?" "Yes, Venerable Sir." The Buddha, "Have you ever known me to teach the Dharma thus? Come, bhikkhus, compete with each other in regard to your learning, and see who can speak more, who can speak better, who can speak longer." "No, Venerable Sir." "Then if you have never known me to teach the Dharma thus, what do you senseless men know and see that having gone forth in such a well-expounded Dharma and Vinaya, you compete with each other in regard to your learning, as to who can speak more, who can speak better, who can speak longer?" So he dressed them down, and lock your heels when you talk to me. No, he didn't say that. That's the only. Anyway, seeing their fault, the bhikkhus immediately prostrated to the Buddha, good for them, confessed their error, and asked for his pardon. Sweet. We too must be careful to maintain a wholesome motivation so that our Dharma debates and discussions do not become a purely intellectual and ego-driven pursuit. Bang. No good. That's, you want to do that, go into business. Get out of here. One time, a famous logician approached the great meditator Milarepa, and trying to embarrass him, asked, "What are the definitions of a syllogism of pervasion and a syllogism of contradiction?" Technical, Yeah, and to this Milarepa replied, "Your mind being pervaded with afflictions is a syllogism of pervasion, and your mind being contradictory with the Dharma is a syllogism of contradiction." He put him down. In this way, he skillfully and compassionately burst the bubble of arrogance of this logician who pursued debate with a skewed motive. Another time, when a logician asked Milarepa to give the definition of non-ascertaining direct perception. "I've been studying with so-and-so, and now, what is your opinion?" Milarepa responded, "A person who outwardly assumes the appearance of a Dharma practitioner, but inwardly is not ascertained as a Dharma practitioner, that is non-ascertaining direct perception." Threw it right back at them. Arya Davis says in his 400s, the Katuta Sataka, whatever it is, I can't even pronounce, the 400s, it's loan, has a title sometimes, Yogic Deeds of the Bodhisattvas. They keep changing the title. But it's a famous text, 400 verses. Arya Davis says, "While attached to your own position and disliking others' positions, you won't approach nirvana. Neither conduct will bring peace." 4 lines, sit you down and start you turning the other way. Someone who is not real, as the Venerables go on now, on page 211, we've got all the way there. Someone who is not really interested in Dharma practice may use debate to enhance his arrogance and animosity. I heard a story about a monk who was unable to establish his own position to the responder during a debate. He became so enraged that he stormed off, picked up a stone, and struck the responder. Oh, that's mature behavior, huh? The 7th grade knows better. In another case, I heard of 2 knowledgeable students whose debates were deep as well as competitive. Not a good word, competitive, because we're learning now. The questioner and respondent were always eager to defeat each other. This sense of competition continued even after they attended Tantric college, sat for their Geshe exams, and received their Geshe degrees. Examine your Geshes, folks. Some of them may be arrogant. I don't know. It seems that for the rest of their lives, they remained antagonistic, continually debating with each other with the thought, I want to defeat him. Now, this is Holiness talking, and he probably knows these people. These are real things. This is not a script to make a point. So you got to be careful. The mind is very tricky. Those afflictions put on different clothes and act as your friends. Be careful, because you suffer when you react to them that way. All right. On the other hand, there are those like the respected master Dondrup Sondru, well known for his skill in debate, which made his students proud to have him as their teacher. Once a Mongolian monk, a learned new Geshe, was debating at the Great Prayer Festival, and Dondrup Sondru was the questioner. During the debate, nothing remarkable happened. There was no rigorous exchange or any important issue. Afterwards, his students asked Dondrup Sondru, what happened, master? You weren't successful in bringing about a powerful debate with this responder. Dondru Sondru replied, the responder was very skilled and learned. Whatever he said accorded with reasoning and scripture, so there's nothing to debate. The Mongolian monk had used debate in the way it was intended, to eliminate ignorance. Dondrup Sondru honored that and did not try to stir up false debates just to demonstrate his skill and emerge victorious. That's what we're talking about. That's what we want to be. Never mind this who won the debate. Good deal. Get on the subway, say, I just want to debate. See how humanity praises. No. Come on, man. Among new students who are learning to debate, there's the saying, if you can convince the responder that something that is correct is incorrect, or that something that is incorrect is correct, then you are learned and skilled in the topic. Chandra Kirti discourages this attitude, saying that it is wrong to refute someone's idea simply for the sake of refuting it and being triumphant. Having the reputation of being a good debater does not get one closer to awakening. Bumper sticker again. Having the reputation of being a good debater does not get one closer to awakening. In the tradition of Nalanda's learned practitioners, we should be objective, honest, and truthful. One physicist told me that a scientist must be impartial and objective when doing research. Being attached to one's hypothesis or the outcomes of one research is not the correct approach. That's probably Varela that did that. He's very close to His Holiness. He's gone. Some people have the mistaken impression that Gelugpas only engage in intellectual study and debate without much meditation, and that Nyingmas and Kargyupas do not study much but meditate a lot. That's nice. People on the outside making these statements, and you'll hear that commonly said. Such stereotypes are unfortunate because within each Tibetan tradition, we find people who focus on study, others who emphasize meditation, and some who offer service in the monasteries, the ones who work and cook, etc. When I speak to any of these of the three Gelug monasteries, Gaden, Sera, and Drepung, the big ones, I encourage the monks to engage enthusiastically in philosophical studies and debate, and then relate what they have learned to practice-oriented texts, such as those on the Lam Rim. Relate to these texts. They should meditate on these teachings, integrating the meaning into their hearts and lives. Similarly, when I teach the monastics from Nyingma, Kagyu, or Sakya monasteries, I encourage them to study the great Indian classics as well as the texts from their own tradition, and then reflect and meditate on what they learn. However, I've witnessed the tendency for some people, teachers and students, to get so accustomed to debating that the way they engage with the Dharma has become unbalanced. For example, Chandrakirti's Supplement to the Middle Way is a key text studied in the monastic curriculum. The initial praise to compassion in the first 5 chapters are filled with material for practice: compassion, bodhicitta, generosity, ethical conduct, fortitude, joyous effort, and meditative stability in the first 5 chapters. But since there is not much material for debate in these, some people hurry through them to reach chapter 6, which is about emptiness, where they jump into debate with full force. If your mind is not prepped by these other practices, if you have conditioned the mind, you're not going to be a good debater, and you're not going to be a good practitioner, mainly. Never mind debate. You could probably fake that. I don't know if they meditate on chapter 6 while studying it, just learning the terms, object of negation, emptiness of inherent existence, the true truth, and so forth, doesn't bring realization. Knowing all those terms and throwing them around in the room doesn't bring realizations. And isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? We need to identify the object of negation within ourselves and then see that it doesn't exist. Identify that which does not exist. Wait a minute. Yeah, this sounds contradictory and weird and blah. When you study and realize the point, that the mind that comes to this conclusion is very well trained in school. What we think exists doesn't. So we're making a big mistake, and that is why we study. We falsely give a status to the mind and to our own impulses that is not there. We're used to it, seems like it's there, it seems more solid than the wall in front of it. They say it's not there. Don't ask me, I'm still looking, but anyway. Something similar may happen when people study Nagarjuna's treatise on the middle way. They spend more time in the first few chapters where there is a lot to debate, but neglect chapters 18 and 26, which speak about dependent arising and the means to achieve liberation. I like to teach chapters 18, 24, and 26 of this text because understanding how we are reborn in cyclic existence and how to reverse that and attain liberation are essential topics for practices. Isn't that what we're at? Anyway, a Western professor once commented to me that monastics debate, but in the end, they return to scriptural passages, quotations to prove their point. He is right. I have suggested many times that people only use reason when debating topics that are slightly obscure. Only use reason. That's what you should be using. Scriptural authority should only be used concerning very obscure phenomena, and even then, you must show why the scripture you are citing is reliable. In short, we should try to practice wisely. You can't just go, and you're not going to convince other people from other religions by quoting this book or that. So, well, we got our own books. How come, we'll quote the Bible? Bang, bang, back and forth. No. So you have to integrate the teachings in your mind so you can speak them nicely to people, to relieve their suffering, not to convert them. And it is my sincere wish, His Holiness goes on page 213, that people emulate the great learned practitioners of the past and all three wisdoms of study, reflection, and meditation. Pointing fingers at others and chiding them to both study and meditate is useless. We should evaluate our own activities and examine whether we incorporate all three into our practice in a balanced way. To investigate the Buddhist teachings in a beneficial way, it is essential to have the qualities of a receptive student. This applies to us. Eagerness to learn. Intelligence. Intelligence, by the way, is not a fixed thing. It can be developed. I'm not too bright. You can develop intelligence. There are techniques to do that in Buddhism. And this intelligence itself, what we call intelligence, also contingent upon your basic character that can be changed. So a receptive student should have eagerness to learn, intelligence, open-mindedness, and key, sincerity. And I always like to say sincerity internally too. Don't just say, yeah, that's what it is. No. Don't overlook your faults. Be sincere about studying your mind and where you're going wrong. Self-sincere, I don't know. As we increase these qualities, our understanding of the Dharma will deepen, and that will arouse confidence in the teachings. This conviction in the truth of the Dharma leads us to have faith in the Buddha who taught it and in the Sangha who have correctly realized it. This illustrates the interconnectedness of philosophical studies and faith in the three jewels. He ties it up all so nicely. He's wonderful. He goes on to role models. We'll take a little bit of Tsong Khapa. This is chapter 13 of Tsong Khapa's Lamrim 3, just to get us familiar because we're almost at the end of the class. I'm reading from page 174, question and answer going back and forth. The question is, if a sensory consciousness is accurate in terms of conventional consciousness, this contradicts its being mistaken conventionally. And the answer to that is, and I think you know the answer, maybe you know, there is the conventional quote in terms of which the sensory consciousnesses are mistaken when we say that they are mistaken conventionally. How is that? They're accurate in describing the horse as the horse, but not accurate in understanding the horse's inherent underlying mode of being, in other words. So they're both accurate and inaccurate. That's the trick here, right? Then again, there is the conventional kind of the in relation to which unimpaired sensory consciousnesses are positive and accurate. These two are the same, then there will be a contradiction. However, as these two usages of conventional are distinct, what contradiction is there? Conventional is accurate when it's talking about things of the world, not accurate in terms of assessing the mode of being of the object. That's all. How are they distinct? I'm not telling you. No. How are they distinct? Reason refutes the essential intrinsic existence of forms and such. It can do this ultimately. It cannot rather do this ultimately, because nothing can be done ultimately in this system, which refutes ultimate existence. So it must do it conventionally. For that kind of conventional consciousness, the sensory consciousnesses are mistaken. Apart from that, the sensory consciousnesses are not mistaken, as seen by ordinary conventional consciousness. Thus, there is no contradiction. For example, it is like the worldly convention: some are here and some are not here. It's very well put, Tsong Khapa. Some are here and some are not here. The term some is the same, but no one supposes that the some who are here and the some who are not here are the same. Okay? So also the non-mistaken quality of the sensory consciousness is posited in terms of an ordinary worldly consciousness. Madhyamikas do not assert them to be non-mistaken. It's like the statement by Chandrakirti, those are true for the world. And what's true for the world, we go along with. Therefore, the Madhyamikas posit the sensory consciousnesses as mistaken. Nonetheless, it is not a contradiction that these sensory consciousnesses posit their false object. Mistaken in terms of mode of being. Keep repeating this so everybody gets an idea. Rather, if a true object were posited, it would be contradictory for us to claim that was posited by a mistaken subject. True meaning it exists, its mode of being is exactly as it appears. And no, to the ordinary sense consciousness, things appear as inherently existent. And I didn't have any espresso. Wow. Conventionally, we assert that all phenomena are like a magician's illusion. Like a dream almost. Yes, Joseph, you're listening. Like your mom said, this seems to be a dream. She's onto something. We assert that all phenomena like a magician's illusion are therefore false in conventional terms. Still, it is not contradictory to posit them as conventional truths, kunzabdempa, samriti satya in Sanskrit. I don't know what it is in Spanish. Chandrakirti's commentary in the Middle Way says, because ignorance obscures the nature of phenomenon, we call it the concealer, kunzab, or samvriti. Here, there is no contradiction in something being true for the concealer, true for a conventional consciousness that is concealed about the real mode of being something. But it's true, this does this, that does that. The way we work in the world, that's red, that's blue, no one argues, okay? That is ignorance and false for the conventional consciousnesses with which we refute the essential existence in phenomena. We're using the conventional to get to the ultimate, as Nagarjuna said. By means of the conventional, the ultimate is seen. By means of the ultimate, suffering is abolished. Very big point from the Mula Madhyamika. The last few lines of this chapter, the statement in Chandrakirti's explanation of the Middle Way, whatever is false even conventionally is not a conventional truth, refers to a conventional valid cognition which realized that things like a reflections being an actual face are false, a mirage being water are false. That's fine. It cannot refer simply to forms and such being false in conventional terms. No. So that's it. False, when they use it, is only in terms of it appearing one way, but actually existing in another. Do we have time for a little Geshe Sopa? On petit peu, Geshe Sopa. Let's see. Do we have this? Can't get something quick. He quotes Chandrakirti on page 187 of his Lamrim 5, just so we get the imprint of this in our minds before we disappear for the holiday season. Ignorance obscures all because it conceals true nature. Owing to it, anything fabricated appears to be true. The Muni Buddha declared this to be conventional truth and fabricated things to be conventionally existent. Yes, truth for concealer. We don't see the underlying reality, but we see what the world sees and we operate on that level. Fine. In this verse, there are three occurrences of the word kunzab, translated variously as obscured or conventional. Each of these occurrences present a different use of the term. The first refers to ignorance and the imprints it leaves on the mind stream, which obscure the ultimate nature of things. The second refers to things that appear to be true to a mind influenced by ignorance. These are called conventional truths or truths for a total obscura. The third refers to how these things exist conventionally because they are based on conventional knowledge of phenomena. Therefore, conventional truth and essential and conventionally existent are quite different notions. According to the Prasangika system, everything that exists only conventionally exists, including shunyata, which is an ultimate truth, the emptiness of emptiness. However, only that which is true for a mind directly realizing shunyata is called ultimate truth, and only what is true for a mind influenced by ignorance, which obscures the true nature of things, is called a conventional truth. Take that to the bank. There is a Tibetan analogy for conventional truth and ultimate truth. A shallow river and a deep river. A shallow river is called a foot river because it can only be crossed on foot. A deep river is called a boat river because it can only be crossed by boat. In both cases, the nature of the water is the same. I don't know. I don't get some of these statements, but we'll leave it at that. So we've got to say goodbye to chapter 13. Maybe a little more Geshe Sopa late. For whom will we pray for? Do we have anybody, Darren? Any names? I want names. What? No names. All the journalists killed. All the people under bombardment. Terrible. Sutra, the recollection of the noble three jewels. I prostrate to the omniscient one. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavata, Tathagata, Arahat, Samyak, Sang Buddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans, is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornate with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strengths cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He's not stained by the realm of desire. He's not stained by the realm of form. He's not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats, who rise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma, which is taught by the Bhagavat, is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great Yana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They're an object of generosity. They're a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata, pure the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivable, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. So that concludes our presentation. Our next presentation will be the day after Christmas, the 26th of December, Tuesday night, at the University Settlement House in New York City, corner of Bowery and Houston. And the class after that will be at the parsonage the Wednesday following, the 27th here. So thank you for your patient listening. Those who celebrate, happy holidays, whatever. Big love to all of you. Take care, guys.